Hi everyone, Big Dave here from Big Dave's Chess Coaching. I have another game here from Paul Morphy. This was in 1849 in New Orleans, and his opponent is Eugene Rosseau, who was considered the strongest player in New Orleans in the first half of the 1840s. So, very strong player in his own regard. And once again, we have Morphy around the age of 12 years old in this game. So we've went back in time again to a little bit of an earlier game where we see him at a young age putting on a fantastic show here in New Orleans. So let's dive into the game and have a look. So we have e4 from Morphy, who's playing white, e5 from Rosseau, and f4. So Morphy is going for what's called the King's Gambit. It's a very aggressive opening. White looks to sacrifice a pawn here on f4 to gain great initiative and to develop his pieces in an aggressive fashion. So Rosseau accepted the gambit in the game, and Morphy continues with a move knight f3, bringing his piece, his knight here, into the game. And we have g5, which is one of the main lines of the King's Gambit. It's a very sharp line here. So black looks to just defend his pawn there on f4, because in the future white wants to push his d-pawn and then recapture with the bishop. So black is just looking to defend that pawn and try to hold on to his lead in material. Morphy continues with the move h4, so he's looking to undermine this defense of the pawn, try to get black to take and remove his defender. But black continues with, again, the main kind of line, or one of the main lines of the King's Gambit, with g4. So rather than capture here, he pushes forward and attacks Morphy's knight. So Morphy has to react, of course, and he pushes the knight up to g5. Okay, so it's an aggressive post already for the knight here, but you do have to be a little bit careful. Your knight could fall into being attacked and run out of squares. But let's see what happened in the game. So the knight is attacked, like we said. Be a little bit careful, you're deep in your opponent's camp. And if you actually have a look now, we can see that the knight actually doesn't have any retreating squares available, because this pawn on g4 is doing a good job of defending those squares where the knight would like to drop back to. So, your knight's under attack, you can't retreat. Does Morphy mind? Is he bothered? Nope. In he goes. He grabs the pawn on f7. Straight in there with the knight, and he's forking this queen and this rook here. So black's response is fairly forced. If he doesn't want to lose the queen or rook, he is going to take, and he does. He takes the knight on f7. And Morphy continues with the move queen takes on g4. So flying that queen into the game, recapturing one of the pawns. So now he's got a pawn for the piece. But more importantly, he has black's king in quite a strange position, with all the pawns kind of stripped away here, and he's just trying to bring his queen closer to that vulnerable king. So black plays the move queen f6. He's looking just to add defense, I think, around his king over here. The king's a little bit breezy with all those pawns kind of missing around him that would usually be there for defense. So the queen steps over to kind of provide defense around these squares that could be weak around the king. And Morphy says, okay, fine, I play bishop c4. I bring another piece into the game. I continue with a check, so you have to respond. And Morphy is just going to try and bring everything in here and go after that black king in that style. So black sidesteps the king out of the check. He steps over here to e7, and Morphy brings another piece into the game with knight c3. So one common theme you'll notice across all these games I'm showing you from Paul Morphy is that he likes to bring all of his pieces into the game, all of his army. He likes to get them all involved, and then he attacks the opponent's king once they're all at the party. So knight c3, bringing that piece in, and c6 from black. I think black is looking just to stop this knight from being able to come to d5. So this pawn here on c6 now controls a d5 square, and if white's knight can jump into d5, then it can attack the queen and the king, which is a huge fork, and black would lose the queen. So black did not want that to happen, and so Rosseau chose to play the move c6. But Morphy instead plays this very interesting move e5. e5, attacking the black queen. So what's the point of this? I mean, black can take the pawn, and yes, indeed, black does take the pawn, which comes with check. So it seems a peculiar move to have played. But Morphy's idea now is to step this king over to d1, allowing his rook there on h1 to swing into the game with a massive threat, which is to pin the queen to the black king. And if he can pull that off, that would be a dead black queen, a goner, of course. So yes, he has this massive threat now. His king, yes, is a little bit funny having to move over here, but at the same time, black doesn't have the resources out to be able to exploit white's king's awkward position. And we can see here that, you know, black's pieces are all really on the back row except for the queen, whereas white is the one who has pieces poised here to perhaps go after the black king that's in the center. So Morphy doesn't mind putting his king here. He wants to swing the rook in, and it is black who'll have to find the defense for this. So black, noticing that that threat is looming, that rook to e1 threat is looming, decides to dodge his king over here to d8, and perhaps he'll try to hide on the square on c7, try to find refuge from white's assault. The rook comes in anyway to e1 because, of course, it's still some time gains against the queen here. We're attacking the queen as we develop a piece, and this is called gaining a tempo in chess. We gain time against our opponent. We make them have to move whilst developing. So this is very powerful play we're seeing from Paul Morphy. Queen dodges over here to c5, and this allows now Morphy to whip off this knight in the corner. So we had this convergence, if you like, from the queen and bishop on the knight there, and Morphy takes the opportunity to whip the knight off and gain that piece in the corner. Black now playing the move d5, and straight away this move should be absolutely fine, you'd think. So first of all, he creates a pawn in the center, gets this nice pawn chain, controlling some key squares perhaps. And not only that, when black pushes the pawn forward like this, he has discovered an attack against white's queen. So he's unveiled the eyes, he's opened the eyes of the bishop, you might say, and this bishop is now staring at the white queen. So this looks like a very good move, of course. But Morphy has something to say about it. Now I'll give you a few seconds to see if you can find it. It is quite a stunning move, quite a stunning combination, in fact, that comes now after the seemingly good move d5. Morphy now plays the move rook to e8, check. Wow, oh my goodness. So rook to e8 is a check, but it seemingly sacrifices the entire rook. There's nothing defending white's rook, so can't the black king take it? And it seems that Rosseau thought the same. He said, okay, I'll take your rook. That's a free rook, isn't it? And now the follow-up, though, we've drawn the king away, can you see? Is queen takes the bishop. So by playing this rook check, we drew away the king. If we go back, we see that the rook drew the king away from the defense of this bishop on c8. So once it moved, the queen recaptured, putting black's king in check. Black steps out of the check, and now another very nice move, a very nice move. I'll give you again a few seconds. If you want to try, you can pause the video and try and see if you can catch this move here. Another brilliant move. And here it comes from Morphy, the move knight takes d5, check. Wow, okay, so first of all, this knight is actually untouchable, even though it kind of looks as though black should be able to perhaps capture it. So first of all, you can't capture with the queen because this bishop over here is also guarding the knight. So don't forget about this sneaky bishop over here at the side of the board. He is still in play, and he's still keeping an eye on that knight. So the queen cannot capture the knight on d5. And if black tries to capture with the pawn, okay, then he loses the queen. Okay, so you can't capture with the pawn because the pawn is pinned to the black queen on c5. Okay, so neither of black's pieces can actually capture this knight. And so instead, the king tries to run away, of course. But we see now the final move, delivering checkmate in one. Again, just a couple of seconds, have a look, see if you can find it. Yep, we've got checkmate in one on queen to c7, checkmate. The black king has nowhere to run. All these pieces coordinate well. This defends the queen, which in turn checks the king. And we can see that all the squares are actually now covered around the king. And that is checkmate. That's game over. So again, another amazing attacking game from a young Morphy, only at the age of 12, and he already produces these wonderful games with very nice attacking ideas. Very nice calculation, as you can see, and so just another brilliant performance, really. So I hope you enjoyed that game there, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Okay, goodbye.